Hello and welcome to NTD News Today. I'm Kevin Hogan. Let's take a look at our top stories. First responders in the Florida condo collapse stopped searching for survivors. It's now a recovery mission. What factors led to the decision? And how is the community handling it? U.S. personnel in Iraq and Syria, the target of a series of attacks, and rockets were launched at the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad's Green Zone. Haitian police are battling the assassins who killed the Haitian president. Police had blocked them as they were leaving the president's property. Redistricting is expected to be a major obstacle for Democrats seeking to hold on to their slim majority in the House of Representatives. Republicans are expected to use the process in the fight to regain control of the House. A grand jury in Florida is tasked with finding ways to prevent another building collapse. The news comes the same day first responders shift from search and rescue to recovery efforts. NTD's Jessica Beatty has more.
A moment of silence Wednesday for the lives lost in the deadly condo collapse in Surfside, Florida, as first responders make a painful pivot from search and rescue to recovery.
We could easily base this, decision on emotions, but you just can't do that.
The assistant fire chief said pancake collapses like this have the lowest chance of survival. There were no pockets or voids where anybody could still be breathing. The dogs had done their searches. Rescue crews had used technology.
We did not get an alert on a K9, a sensor trip for sound, and any visual utilizing our cameras. The last known alert that we received was the initial hours the day of the collapse.
The death toll rose to 54 Wednesday. Over 80 people are still unaccounted for. Florida's lieutenant governor says even though it's now a recovery effort, search crews won't let up.
They are going to continue to dig with the same fervor, the same passion, and the same compassion that they feel towards these families to be able to uncover the remains of their loved ones.
Some emergency workers hugging and crying. Miami-Dade firefighters hung a banner saying they mourn with everyone. One man whose sister and brother-in-law are still missing said he never expected something like this.
And I couldn't believe my eyes when I saw this. You can't express what emotions you feel. Angry, you're sad. You can't express what all the families in there are going through.
Religious leaders led people in prayer, nuns in the crowd praying for victims and their loved ones. One former resident of the building says he lost several friends, all former neighbors he was close to.
I have 8 friends. I lose 8 friends into all the victims from the collapse. 8 persons.
Family members of the residents filing at least 6 lawsuits. And a grand jury in the county will examine ways to prevent any more building collapses in the region. Jessica Beatty, NTD News.
The U.S. Embassy inside Baghdad's Green Zone was the target of a rocket attack today. Iraqi security sources told Reuters that 2 rockets were fired. That's as U.S. troops and diplomats were also attacked in Iraq and Syria, with 2 American service members wounded. Iraqi officials said Wednesday that at least 14 rockets hit the Al-Assad air base and its perimeter. There, 2 American service members were slightly wounded. One had a concussion and the other minor cuts. A spokesman for Iraq's Joint Operations Command said there were a small number of coalition forces there. He said they provide support to the Iraqi security forces in terms of intelligence, investigation, and air support.
Of course, this incident is, to be honest, condemned. A vehicle that carries food supplies would carry rockets, and the Iraqi military base Ain al-Assad was targeted.
Iraqi forces inspected the site in al-Baghdadi where they say the rockets were launched from. The country's military sources said a truck carrying a rocket launcher was used in the attack on Wednesday. They found it in a nearby farm set on fire. What's more, sirens blared at the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad during a rocket attack on Thursday. The compound's anti-rocket system diverted one of the rockets, and the other landed around the Green Zone's perimeter. That's according to Iraqi security officials. And in Syria, U.S. diplomats and troops were attacked by rocket and drone strikes. No one has claimed responsibility, but analysts say Iran-backed militias are behind the attacks. This follows a rocket attack on U.S. troops in eastern Syria in late June. The attack came one day after U.S. airstrikes near the Iraq-Syria border. At the time, Iraq militia groups aligned with Iran vowed revenge against the U.S. Officials from the Iraqi army said the frequency of attacks against bases housing U.S. forces via rockets and drones wielding explosives is unprecedented. The Biden administration has twice taken military action in the region since taking office. Thus far, it appears the White House hasn't given any directive after the recent attack. The Biden administration is considering offering an expedited visa path for vulnerable Afghans, including women, politicians, journalists, and activists who may become targets of the Taliban.
The Biden administration is considering an expedited visa path for vulnerable Afghan women who may become targets of the Taliban. That's according to US officials. Women politicians, journalists and activists continue to face intimidation, discrimination and violence. Human rights groups are calling for up to 2,000 visas specifically for vulnerable women and women's advocates. After the US military pullout of Afghanistan this month, advocacy groups have urged the White House to develop a plan to evacuate thousands, which include those who have worked with foreign forces and translators. One of the officials also said men and minorities working in high-risk professions are also being considered. The White House declined to comment, but US President Joe Biden said he will speak on Afghanistan on Thursday. Women police officers, media workers, judges and medical workers have been assassinated in Afghanistan as foreign military have left the country. Women who appear on TV and radio faced particular threats, Human Rights Watch wrote in April. Under the Taliban, women were barred from education or work, required to fully cover their bodies, and could not leave home without a male relative.
Haiti police say they've killed 4 people suspected in the assassination of President Jovenel Moïse and arrested 2 more.
The government has declared a 2-week state of emergency as it chases down the killers who shot Moïse dead in his home in Port-au-Prince overnight. Haiti Police Chief Leon Charles said Wednesday they had blocked the assassins as they were leaving the crime scene and had been locked in a standoff with them since. Moïse's wife Martine was also shot and severely wounded and has received medical treatment. Haiti's ambassador to the United States told Reuters the gunmen were masquerading as U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration agents, a move that would likely have helped them gain entry to Moïse's guarded residence. Interim Prime Minister Claude Joseph has called for calm across the country, the poorest nation in the Americas. Bustling streets were deserted Wednesday as vehicles transporting Moïse's body to the morgue were rerouted due to gunshots and roadblocks. The United States, Haiti's top aid donor, was quick to condemn Moïse's assassination and vowed to promote peace and security in the region. Meanwhile, the Dominican Republic closed the border it shares with Haiti in anticipation of violent unrest. The UN Security Council is set to evaluate the situation in a closed-door meeting on Thursday.
Dozens of states are suing Google over its App Store practices. Court records show the antitrust lawsuit was filed in the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of California. The District of Columbia and 36 states are named as participants. The suit alleges Google holds a monopoly on Android app distribution in the United States, responsible for over 90% of app downloads for Android devices. On top of that, it claims Google has used restrictive contracts to force Android device makers to promote the Google Play Store at the expense of competition. The suit also takes aim at the up to 30% commission fees Google charges developers for in-app practices. President Biden answered a reporter's question about the investigation into the hacking of the Republican National Committee. He said he might know more by Thursday.
Is Trump responsible for the attempted hack of the RNC?
I was briefed this morning. FBI is working with the RNC to determine the facts. We found out the facts. I'll know what I'm going to do tomorrow. As soon as we get it.
You're okay tomorrow what you're going to do?
Well, I don't know tomorrow, but that's what they're doing now. Thanks.
The Republican National Committee said Tuesday that one of its contractors was hacked, but said no data was accessed. The hack occurred around the same time as the large-scale ransomware attack on software company Kaseya. Biden's comment to reporters came on Wednesday after he returned to the White House from a trip to Illinois. The president had received a briefing earlier by administration officials about their efforts to combat ransomware. As Republicans and Democrats prepare to battle for control of the House of Representatives next year, the congressional redistricting is likely to be a challenge for Democrats seeking to maintain their slim majority. NTD's Don Ma has the story.
Redistricting may be an obstacle for Democrats seeking to maintain their slim majority in the House of Representatives next year. Every 10 years, following a federal census, states redraw congressional districts. Political parties use that process to shape districts that help them gain state and national congressional seats. In most cases, state legislatures draw the new boundary lines. Republicans currently control the legislatures of 30 states, while Democrats only have 18. 2 states are split. Republican-controlled states also picked up seats from the census. Texas, Montana, Florida, and North Carolina all gained seats. With Democrats in control of both houses of Congress, along with the White House, former President Trump and other Republicans are focused on taking back the House in 2022. Republicans say they're targeting 47 seats currently held by Democrats. Democrats announced that they're targeting 22 seats currently held by Republicans. Democrats faced another headwind. The party that controls the White House usually loses seats in midterm elections. Democrats lost 63 seats in Barack Obama's first term and 52 in Bill Clinton's. Republicans lost 40 seats with Trump in office. Redistricting data from the census is coming out later than normal due to the pandemic. It's expected to be released in mid to late August. Don Ma, NTD News.
A federal judge in Georgia declined to block provisions in Georgia's election law while it undergoes legal challenges. The judge says he isn't going to change the rules at the last minute while officials are preparing for elections. The Coalition for Good Governance is challenging Georgia's election integrity law. They asked the court to block certain aspects of the law from taking effect, including a provision that requires voters request absentee ballots at least 11 days ahead of Election Day. The executive director of the group says they'll file more legal challenges to block enforcement of the law. Georgia's election law is facing multiple lawsuits, including one from the Department of Justice targeting key provisions in the law. Those include voter ID requirements and drop box limits. Democrats say the law is intended to reduce turnout for minorities. Georgia's Republican governor and Secretary of State say the lawsuit's allegations are unfounded and that they mischaracterize the law. A D.C. court rules that Rudy Giuliani cannot practice law in Washington, D.C. It follows the suspension of Giuliani's New York license 2 weeks ago. The order from the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals comes after the New York Supreme Court said he made what it describes as false and misleading statements following the November 3rd presidential election. The D.C. filing cites the suspension of Giuliani's New York license and will depend on the result of disciplinary proceedings in New York. New York courts claim Giuliani's statements threatened the public interest. Giuliani led a legal effort that alleged former President Trump was fraudulently denied victory in key swing states. The court said Giuliani's words directly contributed to the events at the Capitol on January 6th. Giuliani said he would go to court to fight the ruling. The country's biggest teachers union erased a resolution in favor of critical race theory from its website Tuesday. The item was deleted just 3 days after the union approved the resolution in an online convention. NTD's Don Ma has the story.
The National Education Association, or NEA, erased a resolution in favor of critical race theory from its website just days after approving it. Several agendas became unavailable to the NEA website Tuesday afternoon. Jessica Anderson, the executive director of Heritage Action, tweets about the deleted posts. She says, 3 days after their annual meeting concludes, the nation's largest teacher union scrubs the agenda items announcing their nationwide campaign to push CRT from their website. Why are they covering up their support for CRT? The deleted resolution described the Marxist-based theory as an appropriate framework for teaching. It would dedicate union staff to assist members who want to fight back against anti-CRT rhetoric. And it calls on the teachers union to join with Black Lives Matter on George Floyd's birthday for a day of action to teach about structural racism. Another deleted resolution called for NEA to research organizations that are pushing back against CRT. It's not clear why the items were deleted. They're still available in Internet Archive searches. With more than 3 million members, NEA is the largest education employee union in the U.S. They did not immediately respond to a request for comment about the deleted materials. Don Ma, NTD News.
Federal lawmakers are working to address the plight of men and women wrongfully convicted of crimes in the U.S. More than 2,800 people nationwide have been exonerated. Lawmakers are pushing to increase the federal statute for compensating people who have been exonerated. The federal compensation standard is a minimum of $50,000 per year of wrongful incarceration, plus an additional amount for each year on death row. The proposed Justice for Exonerees Act would increase the compensation amount to a minimum of $70,000. 75 House lawmakers from both parties are calling for President Biden to reopen the U.S. border with Canada to non-essential travel. They say they're concerned that if nothing is done, the U.S. could lose billions of dollars by the end of the year.
Congressman Bill Higgins, Bill Huizenga, and Kathy Castor are leading dozens of lawmakers in urging President Biden to take steps to reopen international travel to the U.S. In a letter Wednesday, a bipartisan group of 75 lawmakers laid out their call to action, including opening the border between the U.S. and Canada. The border was closed to non-essential travel in March last year in response to the CCP virus pandemic. Travel restrictions have so far been extended to July 21st this year. Separately, a coalition of 24 industry organizations on Wednesday urged the White House to lift restrictions that stop international travel to the United States. The groups are led by the U.S. Travel Association and represent airlines, casinos, hotels, airports, and airplane manufacturers. Meanwhile, the group of lawmakers is calling for Biden to increase the country's capacity to process visas for tourism and business. They say the U.S. lost $150 billion in export income due to the steep decline in travel last year, stating if nothing is done to lift entry restrictions, the U.S. is projected to lose 1.1 million jobs and an additional $175 billion by the end of the year. We reached out to the Biden administration for comment, but didn't hear back before airtime.
Biden isn't expected to revisit the question of reopening the U.S.-Canada border for at least another 2 weeks, though he and Canada's Trudeau did discuss border restrictions at a G7 meeting last month. Just ahead, the Gates Foundation says Bill and Melinda Gates will continue to lead the foundation together for at least another 2 years after their divorce. The widow of tech mogul John McAfee is questioning details surrounding her late husband's death. She says that she does not accept claims that he died by suicide and says the media can't be trusted. Stay tuned for more. The Gates Foundation said Melinda and Bill Gates, in the midst of a high-profile divorce, will continue to work as co-chairs for a 2-year trial period, and that she would step down after that time if their arrangement doesn't work.
Their high-profile marriage is coming to an end, and so too could their groundbreaking partnership in global philanthropy. The Gates Foundation on Wednesday announced that Bill and Melinda Gates would continue to work as co-chairs for 2 years, but that she would step down after that time if their arrangement doesn't work. It's a contingency plan aimed at ensuring a smooth transition for the foundation, which has spent over $50 billion in the past 2 decades toward combating poverty and disease. It would also ensure Melinda received personal resources from Bill for her own philanthropic work, which would be completely separate from the foundation's endowment, the organization said in a blog post. Bill would then assume full stewardship of the Gates Foundation, which the couple had often referred to as their 4th child. Founded in 2000, the Gates Foundation has become one of the most powerful and influential forces in global public health. Last year, it committed over $1.7 billion to combat the health crisis. Wednesday's announcement also comes after billionaire investor Warren Buffett in June said he was resigning as a trustee of the Gates Foundation and had donated half his wealth to philanthropy since pledging 15 years ago to give away his fortune from running Berkshire Hathaway. Bill and Melinda Gates filed for divorce in May after 27 years of marriage, but had pledged to continue their philanthropic work together. To that end, the two on Wednesday committed another $15 billion to the Gates Foundation, their single largest contribution since 2000.
The widow of technology entrepreneur John McAfee says she does not accept claims that her late husband died by suicide. She's criticizing the media for spreading that story and says they can't be trusted. Here are the details.
Janice McAfee, the widow of tech mogul John McAfee, is criticizing media reports claiming her late husband died by suicide. In a statement posted on Twitter Tuesday, Janice said she needs answers surrounding her husband's death and noted the investigation is still ongoing. She wrote, "Until then, I do not accept the suicide story that has been spread by the malignant cancer that is the mainstream media. They and their unnamed sources are not to be trusted." John was found dead in a Barcelona jail cell on June 23rd. He was awaiting extradition to the U.S. on tax-related charges. Before his death, John had argued in a hearing that the charges against him were politically motivated. Spanish newspaper El País reported that according to unnamed sources close to the case, a preliminary autopsy concluded that John died by suicide. But in her Tuesday statement, Janice charged that, quote, the story of John's suicide was already prepared and presented to the public before I or his attorneys were even notified of his death, adding she heard the news of John's death via Twitter. Both El País and the Associated Press reported that a suicide note had been found in John's pocket, citing unnamed sources familiar with the investigation. But Janice is calling this detail into question. She wrote, it's conveniently reported that there was a suicide note found in his pocket, something that was not mentioned when I collected John's belongings from the prison, and another piece of information the media somehow got a hold of before myself and John's attorneys. The widow explained she spoke with John twice on the day he died. She says he told her they would continue to fight all the necessary appeals and said he would call her in the evening. But, she wrote, sadly that call never happened. Janice says she plans to share information about the investigation into John's death when she can.
Authorities said Wednesday that they seized over $1 billion worth of illegal marijuana in the largest eradication effort in Los Angeles County history.
Los Angeles County has seen a significant proliferation of illegal outdoor marijuana grows, especially in the Antelope Valley. Many of these grows have been directly tied to Mexican drug trafficking organizations and Asian and Armenian organized crime groups.
You know, what we have, ladies and gentlemen, is an illicit weedemic. It's terrible. This weed is threatening our environment, it's threatening our public health, and it's threatening our public safety in very real ways.
Unregulated cannabis cultivation operations often allow fertilizers, pesticides, petroleum fuels, sediment, irrigation tailwater, trash, and human waste to be released into the environment and to pollute waters of the state.
In the 10-day operation, police seized 373,000 marijuana plants and over 33,000 pounds of harvested cannabis. 131 people were arrested. Cash, guns, and vehicles were also seized. Gas prices in California are reaching record highs again. NTD's Brandon Dre tells us how supply and demand for oil is causing the prices to reach $5 per gallon.
California gas prices hit another record high this week. The cost of fuel statewide soared to an average of $4.30 a gallon, taking it to its highest points in nearly a decade. The U.S. Energy Information Administration says California drivers could spend an extra $16 to fill up their tank.
The problem this year that's pushed prices up so significantly is that the economy has recovered, or it has seen such a strong recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic. Gasoline consumption has gone up considerably.
DeHaan says last year oil companies lost billions of dollars in revenue, causing both oil production and prices to plummet into negative territory. Now, Californians must wait for the oil supply and demand curve to flatten.
Now that things have improved, gasoline consumption has gone up, but oil production has not.
After Governor Newsom lifted state lockdowns last month, the price of oil increased over $1 since the beginning of the year. LA County alone saw an increase of 8.4 cents in the last 20 days. On July 1st, California increased its gas tax by 0.6 of a cent through the Road Repair and Accountability Act of 2017. The legislation increased California drivers 51 cents per gallon in taxes, supposedly going to roads and infrastructure. But DeHaan says this is only a drop in the bucket compared to supply and demand.
But if you look back the last 5 years, gasoline taxes in California have advanced over 20 cents a gallon as a result of an increase in gas tax. So this year's adjustment on July 1st is rather minuscule.
DeHaan also says President Biden's climate change policies are driving the cost of fuel to rise. The president's vow to end fossil fuels and lower U.S. greenhouse gas emissions by 2030 put a halt to new oil and gas drilling from the Keystone XL pipeline.
Now, as of right now, California leads the national average with more than $1.20 per gallon, and it's expected to plateau by the beginning of August. Brandon Dre, NTD News, Los Angeles.
Up next, New York City held its first ticker tape parade since the start of the pandemic. The Big Apple thanked all those who worked selflessly to keep the city alive during the pandemic. And around 25,000 bees swarmed across Times Square this week. The NYPD quickly transported them to a safe place. Find out more here on NTD News.
I'm Mike Lindell, inventor of MyPillow. Thanks to your support, you've helped make MyPillow become one of the fastest growing companies in America. Over the last 12 years, you've helped MyPillow create thousands of jobs right here in the USA.
When I got MyPillow, I'm asleep almost immediately. I stay asleep at night and I wake up more well-rested in the morning.
That's why I invented MyPillow. My patented fill adjusts to your exact individual needs and helps keep your neck supported and aligned. I'm interrupting this commercial right now. Retailers have canceled MyPillow, and to thank you for your support, I'm gonna pass the savings directly on to you. For example, you get my 6-piece towel sets, regular $109.99, now only $44.98, or MyPillow dog beds for as low as $19.99 with your promo code.
For the best night's sleep in the whole wide world, visit MyPillow.com.
Hi folks, Joe Namath here, and if you're on Medicare, this is important. You're now entitled to eliminate copays and get dental care, dentures, eyeglasses, prescription coverage, in-home aids, unlimited transportation, and home-delivered meals, all at no additional cost. Plus, your zip code may have coverage with the Give Back benefit that adds money back to your Social Security check every month.
I called to get dental, transportation, meals, and the Give Back benefit.
With this virus situation, I called to get everything I'm entitled to. I couldn't believe I was missing out on so many benefits.
With the uncertainty of the virus, you need to get everything you're entitled to. Millions of people have trusted the Medicare Coverage Helpline. You can too. Call now. It's free.
Call 1-800-764-1930. That's 1-800-764-1930 now.
While many of us spent most of last year quarantining at home, some were still doing their jobs every single day. On Wednesday, New York City thanked those people for their selfless work. NTD's Arian Pastar went to a Hometown Heroes parade in downtown Manhattan.
Much like the people of New York, the city's mayor was also excited to get the parade going.
Oh, it's going to be great. It's going to be amazing. We're going to honor the people who did the work and saw us through. They really deserve all of our praise.
The area was quiet at first, but as soon as the parade started, New Yorkers showed that they haven't forgotten how to celebrate. We're in the middle of the first ticker tape parade after the pandemic here in New York City. And the theme is about the pandemic. More exactly, it's about the essential workers you see right here. They helped the city get through this entire pandemic, and now the city wants to give back by showing gratitude. And as you can see, the people here are very thankful. How does it feel getting cheered on by everybody here?
It feels awesome because all of us contributed to this point where we can be somewhat maskless outside, celebrating together and being together as one.
The main focus for workers in the healthcare field is to help others. We asked one of them what it means to selflessly contribute to the greater good.
Every day we go out there, we sacrifice ourselves, we sacrifice time with our family, times in our careers just to serve for the greater good.
Mayoral candidate Curtis Sliwa says there is one group of essential workers that deserves more praise.
Let's get the police back to being the heroes that they always were before.
However, the NYPD's commissioner proved that there is still love for the man in blue in the Big Apple. Do you feel like there should also be a little bit more gratitude for the police in New York City?
Let's ask them. Come on, let's ask. Who loves the NYPD? Woo! There you go.
So that's the end of the parade in honor of the essential workers. The mayor here behind me on the stage is thanking all of the groups one by one.
We salute you. Thank you.
Arian Pastar, NTD News, New York.
This week, visitors at Times Square saw an unusual sight: tens of thousands of bees. According to witnesses, the bees swarmed down 7th Avenue before being safely transported away by the NYPD.
New York City's Times Square welcomes hundreds of thousands of pedestrians each day. On Tuesday, it saw some rather special visitors, a swarm of 25,000 bees. The New York City Police Department posted on Twitter that the bees swarmed right across the street from a hot dog stand.
I see the bee by 44 street right there.
Then all the way down to 4036 flying by the police station. And this is not the first time.
El Faramawi says another swarm of bees came to the exact same spot 2 years ago as well.
With a lot.
The owner of the hot dog stand was not perturbed by the bees.
I make my smoke so the bees don't come nearby me.
He said other people witnessing the event also seemed more amused than scared.
Everybody have his own record.
The New York City police responded quickly to remove the bees. These little visitors got to sit shotgun in a police vehicle before being transported to a safe place in the Hudson Valley.
The U.S. Coast Guard is searching for 9 missing people after a boat capsized near Florida's Key West. Officials say the boat was carrying migrants from Cuba when it overturned Monday night. 22 people were on board at the time. Good Samaritans and Coast Guard crews rescued 13 people from the water. 7 men and 2 women are still missing. The Coast Guard says it will continue to search for the missing passengers. Tropical storm Elsa was crossing Cuba east of Havana at the time, which would have affected the seas. A new report says the hotel industry is in an economic depression despite an increase in travel. It's bad for hotel revenue, but it means bargain prices if you're ready to travel. NTD's Phil Zoe reports.
Wait a minute, how much does a room cost again? I'll call you back. Guys, hotels across the U.S. are struggling. Some are making up to 70% less money now than before the pandemic. But what does that mean for you? Cheaper hotel rooms. But the bad news, some of your favorite hotels might not even be around anymore.
Hotel revenues in San Francisco are down 70%. And in Chicago and New York, they're down about 60%.
We are open for business. We're now open for business, but it's just going to be a slow climb back.
The Hotel Association of New York City doesn't expect hotels to recover until at least 2025.
Rates are going to be a long time climbing in terms of getting back to where they were. So New York is going to be a bargain city for the next 2, minimum, more likely 3 years.
Vijay Dantapani, president of HANYC, says hotel occupancy is back to 60%. But that is a far cry from the 90% occupancy that New York is used to.
And if you don't have people in the office, how are you going to have business meetings? So all of that is going to take time. I strongly believe that these things will come back. The industry is very optimistic.
Out of all the top U.S. hotel markets, only 2 cities are actually making more money now than before the pandemic. That's Tampa and Miami, Florida, making 10% and 30% more revenue respectively. The American Hotel and Lodging Association is asking Congress to pass the Save Hotel Jobs Act so workers can remain employed until travel picks up. Phil Zoe, NTD News, New York.
Up next, a top Indonesian scientist died Wednesday of a suspected COVID-19 infection. That comes as virus deaths among medical staff keep rising in the country. Most of them already received the Sinovac shot. And a German think tank scholar is now in detention. He has been spying for the Chinese regime for over a decade. Stay tuned for more here on NTD News. China's Sinovac vaccine is making its way into arms across much of Indonesia. But growing virus-related fatalities among healthcare workers are casting doubt over its efficacy. Among the latest, a leading Indonesian scientist overseeing the Sinovac vaccine trials. Here's more.
Indonesian media reported Wednesday that a top scientist has passed away. She had been leading clinical trials for China's Sinovac vaccine in Indonesia. She was in her early 50s. A local news service revealed she died of a suspected infection of the CCP virus, or COVID-19, the same virus the Sinovac vaccine is designed to protect against. Media outlet Sindo News quoted an official from Indonesian state-owned pharmaceutical company Bio Farma. That's the company cooperating with China's Sinovac and manufacturing the doses. The official explained the scientist had been buried according to COVID-19 protocols. In a social media post, Indonesia's state enterprise minister mourned what he called the huge loss at Bio Farma. But he didn't comment on the cause of her death. Indonesia reported more than 1,000 CCP virus deaths in one day for the first time on Wednesday. That's on top of a record 34,000 plus infections. The latest wave has been driven by the Delta variant of the virus. Growing virus-related fatalities among medical staff have led many to question the efficacy of the Sinovac doses. The Chinese vaccine has been widely used in Indonesia. According to independent data group Laport COVID-19, 131 healthcare workers have died since June. Most were vaccinated with a Sinovac shot. 50 died in July alone. Last month, Sinovac spokesman Liu Peicheng told Reuters preliminary results showed the vaccine produced a threefold reduction in neutralizing effect against the Delta variant.
A longtime scholar at a German think tank has successfully hidden his ties to Beijing since 2010, but not anymore. German prosecutors are now indicting him and detaining him for spying. NTD's Tiffany Meyer brings us more of the details.
Germany arrested a scholar on Monday, accusing him of spying for China's Secret Service. That's the same day the CCP leader Xi Jinping held an online summit with German Chancellor Angela Merkel and French President Macron. The arrested scholar is identified as Klaus L., a political scientist. He has worked at a German think tank for over 2 decades and served the Chinese regime for money. That's according to the German prosecutor's announcement. The Chinese intelligence service recruited him during his lecture trip to Shanghai in 2010. The prosecutor's office says the man provided information to Beijing regularly since then and made trips to China until late 2019. The man collected information from various high-ranking political contacts. That's thanks to resources he developed over the years working for the think tank. German broadcaster ARD said the man worked for the Hans Seidel Foundation based in Munich. The foundation didn't make any immediate comment. Beijing-based app developer Bytedance has reportedly abandoned its plans to list in the New York market. The company owns widely popular video sharing platform TikTok. According to financial blog Zero Hedge, that decision follows uproar with Chinese ride-hailing service Didi. The company saw a staggering sell-off and a plunge in share price just days after its U.S. listing. It's billions of dollars in stock losses triggered by an order from Beijing, mandating its removal from all Chinese app stores. In recent months, Beijing has been expanding its antitrust crackdown on many of China's technology giants. It's wiped a combined $823 billion from their market value altogether. The corporations affected include Tencent, owner of popular messaging platform WeChat, tycoon Jack Ma's online retail giant Alibaba Group, and Didi. Bytedance is now considering plans to list in Hong Kong instead. Beijing's crackdown has seemingly made one message clear. Chinese firms should stay away from listing in the U.S. market. Instead, they can list domestically or in Hong Kong.
Still to come, England defeats Denmark in the Euro 2020 semifinal. The victory advances their chance to win their first Euro title since 1966. Ecstatic fans react. 2 Polish athletes make their final preparations for the Tokyo Olympics, determined to represent their country and bring home the hardware. More on that in just a minute.
When the game's over and it's time to go home, sometimes your car has other plans. That's why I drive with CarShield. As expensive as car repairs can be, I wanted the best defense around. And with CarShield's administrators, they make sure that you don't get stuck with expensive car repairs like this. Did I forget to mention that with CarShield's network, I also get 24/7 roadside assistance, towing, and rental car reimbursement included. That's peace of mind every driver needs.
I saved close to $9,000.
If it wasn't for CarShield, I wouldn't have my car.
I gotta tell you, it's quite a relief not to worry about expensive car breakdowns anymore. And with CarShield's administrators, you can choose your favorite mechanic or dealer to do the work. Plus, it's easier than ever to get America's favorite car protection. There's no long-term contracts, and coverage is affordable for every wallet size.
If I didn't have CarShield, I would have been out of pocket $7,000. As a parent of 3, I couldn't have that.
I trust CarShield administrators because they paid my claim.
Talk about MVP protection for less than the cost of a ball game. Take it from me, the Boomer. Nobody wants to go through the headache of an expensive car breakdown on their own.
If you're driving without a warranty, you have to call CarShield.
Yeah, you do.
So do yourself and your car a favor. Call CarShield. They're your best line of defense against expensive breakdowns.
CarShield administrators paid almost $4,000 for my repairs.
CarShield is wonderful. They saved me $1,300.
With CarShield, I saved $4,100 on my first repair.
Over 1 million happy drivers couldn't be wrong. Call CarShield now.
Protect yourself now against expensive auto repair bills. Call CarShield for a free and instant protection plan quote. Once your car breaks down, it's too late. Call 1-800-862-2990. That's 1-800-862-2990. 1-800-862-2990.
Thousands of Tampa Bay Lightning fans seen celebrating at the Amalie Arena after their team became the only three-time back-to-back Stanley Cup champions in the last quarter of a century. The Lightning beat the visiting Montreal Canadiens with a 1-0 win in the fifth game of the series, giving them a 4-1 Stanley Cup win. The Canadiens were Canada's last hope of ending the country's longest Stanley Cup drought. No Canada-based team has won the NHL championship since 1993. Tampa Bay scored the game's only goal with under 7 minutes left in the second period. Tampa Bay goaltender Andrei Vasilevsky was awarded the playoffs' Most Valuable Player trophy for his performance. He had 22 saves in the final game. England soccer fans were full of emotion on Wednesday, beating Denmark 2-1 in the Euro 2020 semifinal. NTD's Andrew Thomas reports.
The energy was palpable in England as fans celebrated the chance to win another trophy for their country. Footage of fans at Box Park Croydon in South London reveal a frenzied scene. At the end of the match, supporters at Box Park danced, cheered, tore off shirts, and threw beer up in the air.
You know what? It's better than childbirth. It's here. And, you know, my daughter was born in 2012, and you know what? It's a better feeling. It's a better feeling. Come on, England!
Supporters kept up the celebrations as they left Wembley Stadium too.
Amazing, amazing! What a game, what a game! Come on, England! Lost my voice, can't speak. Come on, England!
The Danes took a 30th minute lead when Mikkel Damsgaard stunned the home crowd. That's when his free kick from over 25 yards flew into the net. England scored the equalizer 9 minutes later. After Harry Kane's clever pass allowed Bukayo Saka to get behind the Danish defense, Saka sent it across the net. Danish player Simon Kjær tried to defend, but put the ball into his own goal. After a scoreless second half, England secured a place in their first tournament final since 1966. A penalty kick was called after Joachim Mæhle brought down Raheem Sterling in the box. Although Denmark keeper Kasper Schmeichel pushed out Kane's penalty shot, the England captain rebounded the ball and scored for the win.
Unlucky for her. Amazing for me. Yes, and it's coming home, eh?
England will face Italy in the Euro 2020 final at Wembley on Sunday at 3 p.m. Eastern. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
As athletes around the world get ready for the upcoming Tokyo Games, 2 elite Polish competitors are preparing for an Olympics like no other. Here's NTD's Andrew Thomas with the story.
Paweł Fidek is a Polish hammer thrower and 4-time world champion. He said Tuesday that an empty stadium at the Tokyo Games wouldn't matter. His job is to win a medal and fulfill his dreams.
We all go to the Olympics to realize our dreams, our plans. The most important goal is to get into the final, to win a medal in the final, to give joy to ourselves, to our compatriots, friends, family, coaches.
Fidek said a 3-month rest in 2020 proved beneficial as he achieved better gains this year. He currently holds the season's best throw at 272 feet, just short of his personal best, 275 feet. Fidek added the empty stadium in Tokyo might actually prove helpful. This way, athletes should be able to better hear their coach's feedback and make corrections. Aleksandra Miroslav is the only Polish climber to qualify for the Tokyo Olympics, and she's feeling the heft of great expectations after her 2 world titles in speed climbing. But her preparations have been nearly perfect thanks to her puppy. Loki makes sure her concentration levels never dip during training sessions and keeps her focused.
He is a companion. He makes the training more interesting. He also is a little disruptor. He forces me to focus more on the training and learn how to switch off my mind from distractions. And this may bring positive results during competitions. But generally, it's just fun.
Sport climbing will make its Olympic debut in Tokyo this year. The unique format will feature 20 male and 20 female athletes competing over 3 disciplines: speed, lead, and bouldering. They'll be judged on their combined scores. Miroslav said she had hoped someone else would qualify from her country, but explained she's very proud.
I enjoy the mood, I like the adrenaline, I really truly love the stress. It doesn't paralyze me, it mobilizes me, and when it's there, I feel like a fish in water.
The climbing events will take place at Tokyo's Aomi Urban Sports Park from August 3rd to the 6th. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
International Olympic Committee President Thomas Bach arrived in Tokyo today with just over 2 weeks to go before the opening of the Summer Olympics. Here's more.
Olympic organisers are poised to ban all spectators from the Games. That's according to Japan's Asahi newspaper on Thursday. Organisers were set to formally reach the decision on spectators during 5-way talks between key parties to be held later in the evening. The International Olympic Committee's head, Thomas Bach, arrived in Tokyo earlier in the day and was set to chair that meeting. It's the latest blow to the troubled Summer Games, already delayed by a year because of the pandemic and plagued by a series of setbacks, including massive budget blowouts. Japan is also preparing to declare a state of emergency for Tokyo that will coincide with its hosting of the event. Medical experts have said for weeks that having no spectators at the Games would be the least risky option. There's been widespread public concern that the influx of thousands of athletes and officials will fuel a fresh wave of infections. Organisers have already banned overseas spectators and have for now set a cap on domestic viewers at 50% capacity, up to 10,000 people. Anyone wanting to support athletes has been told to do so by clapping rather than cheering or singing.
Tea has been consumed since the beginning of time, and it's not hard to see why. It's a relaxing and soothing beverage packed with vitamins and antioxidants.
Welcome to Strong Mind and Body. I'm Gina Marie. Tea is the second most consumed beverage on our planet, only behind water. In addition, tea has some very real health benefits. Here are a few things you may not know about this fabulous drink. Tea comes from the plant Camellia sinensis. It's mostly grown in China and India. It comes in white, yellow, green, oolong, black, and pu'er. They all come from the same plant but are processed differently to achieve different tastes. Herbal teas contain fruits and herbs but are made without camellia tea leaves. Herbal teas can be consumed for its flavor or for health benefits. In Chinese medicine, one of the primary ways medicinal herbs are consumed is boiled in water as a decoction, which is essentially herbal tea. Some common herbs that can be steeped into tea include mint, ginger, cinnamon, and chrysanthemum. So why is green tea served in Chinese restaurants, you ask? The answer is based on Chinese dietary therapy, in which you need a little warmth or digestive fire to properly digest your foods. When you drink an ice-cold beverage with your meal, it slows down your digestion. All that cold demands energy from your body to warm up your food, digest it, and convert it into nutrients. Therefore, a little warm tea is considered a digestive aid. Tea is healthy for you in other ways too. A little tea is good for you if you have asthma, as it can open up your lungs. In addition, research studies are suggesting that tea offers protective effects against cancer. Tea is also packed with vitamins and antioxidants. While tea is the second most consumed beverage worldwide, cultural connections to this flavorful drink vary widely throughout the world. In Great Britain, there is high tea with lots of food and pastries. The tea ceremonies in China and Japan focus on the importance and ritualized precision of making the tea itself. In Pakistan and other Middle Eastern countries, tea is prepared as chai with a mixture of pistachios, almonds, cardamom, and cinnamon. In the United States, against all convention, tea has been iced, sweetened, flavored, and has taken on the persona of a soft drink. While both tea and coffee contain caffeine, tea has less caffeine and lends itself to relaxation and reflection. The higher caffeine content in coffee makes it a little edgier and more energizing. So what are your favorites? Mine include white jasmine tea, nettle tea, and chamomile tea.
Thanks for watching. My team and I are honored to be your source for the news. In New York City, I'm Kevin Hogan.
We have a new channel. Subscribe to us on YouTube at NTD News. Get the highlights of our news broadcast and the most important headlines that we curate especially for you.
Don't let YouTube decide what information you get. That's your choice. YouTube is deleting our videos and cuts you off from a source of honest reporting. Make sure you don't lose access to NTD's news content, and take a quick moment to subscribe to our newsletter so no matter what happens here, you'll keep your access to a trustworthy news source.